Hello and good evening. My name is Frankie Fernandez, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. My guest at the other end is miles apart from you and me. He's right now sitting in Philadelphia, United States of America. And the reason I have him this evening is because of his fourth book that he had just released. Goans would know him as a super cop, but over the last 6 years, he has begun authoring books. Please welcome Shirish Thorat.
Frankie.
Shirish, let's begin with your fourth book, Clay Horse. Now, you've been out of India for over 6 years, and still you touch upon rural India in this new book. Tell us about it.
Well, I originate from rural India. To be frank, I originate from rural Maharashtra. And Clay Horses is in many ways a reflection of my experiences there. What people living in metropolitan cities don't realize that 50 kilometers outside the city, the entire scenario, atmosphere, and living conditions change in India. Clay Horses is born out of a particular incident where about 3 years ago, in the small town of Baramati, there was a marathon which was held, and a 68-year-old woman apparently won the marathon because she needed the money for her husband's treatment. I got the news through some WhatsApp forwards, and I found it very interesting. It wouldn't leave my mind. So on my next visit down to India, I made a point of visiting the village and meeting the woman. And what followed thereafter was eventually became a book called Clay Horses. That's the story in a nutshell.
That's very interesting. I've read a bit of the synopsis of the book, and it summed up pretty well of the struggles and what exactly happens with women, especially in the rural areas. Now, do you think that poverty restricts the population from being more open-minded and accepting newfound challenges?
Well, poverty gives rise to a certain set of circumstances, particularly society-wise and in forming the culture of the people. The limitations of transportation, financial limitations give limitations to communication also. And at the same time, poverty and lack of a decent wage level or lack of a different income level basically places restrictions across almost every sphere of your life. And that's the biggest disadvantage poverty puts you at. And when you have restrictions on every sphere of life, you basically end up with very little alternatives. And that lack of alternatives have the advantage actually of creating a sort of interdependence between people and forming a bond.
That's absolutely. And if you read the book, I think that sums up more of it, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's the lack of the book is about an existential struggle of a human being, and in that struggle, how institution like marriage solidifies. It gains strength and fortitude instead of an easier alternative of divorce in case you don't get along with anybody. There's no alternative of divorce in rural India. There is no alternative of separation. There is a husband, wife, and the nuclear family, and their need to stay together purely by virtue of their interdependence. And that somehow translates more often than not into mutual respect, love, affection, and a bond which we living in cities might find it very difficult to understand.
Oh, exactly. I fully agree with you on that. Now, their interdependence of marriage, do you feel that this comes from a place of comfort or fear?
Well, it initiates with fear, and then it basically translates into mutual understanding, respect, and a determination to make life succeed, to celebrate life regardless of the restrictions imposed on you.
In a way, it is overcoming challenges, isn't it?
It it does overcome challenges, particularly in women, but it also sort of gives the rise to a to the phenomena of what I'm beginning to call as rural feminism.
Okay.
Feminism as we know it is understood to be almost purely a urban concept, but rural feminism has always been there in India, particularly in the hinterlands. We have had these women coming up, shining out, and standing tall, but that is increasing more now, and that's what I see.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, do you think that the lack of empowerment of in other rural places in India allow women to accept their circumstances and hence gain this closure?
That may have been the case, Frankie, about 25 or 30 years ago, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Every woman now has no matter in which part of India, has a cell phone, has access to the internet, is educated, is now become opinionated. So I don't think that old India still exists where women are like helpless or bound by circumstances. There might be pockets in some deep misogynistic areas, or totally male dominated areas, but I think women have definitely broken out.
Okay, that's interesting again, once again. Now, women everywhere in some way or the other follow the same progression of life as you have in your book about Hindu. Now, do
Yeah.
you think that it is right for women to be welcoming of such expectations that dictate their life to them?
No, I think it's right for all women to become Hindus, because Hindu refused to succumb to societal pressures. Hindu refused to let life dictate to her how she should live. She just went forward and kept fighting and got her what she wanted. And when her man fell uh, fell sick, was unable to even get up, she refused even to accept that verdict, a medical verdict, and she emerges victorious. And in that journey, she also overcomes her own inner fears, demons, and gets a sense of closure for certain incidences that have happened in her life. And I think that
Oh,
closure is what most people want. Most of us, when we are living our lives, we are often seeking closure to incidences which we don't even realize.
exactly, exactly. Now, what role do you think urbanization would play in shaping up the lives of the new generation to come in rural areas?
Rural areas, our government outreach has improved. Uh, People have, because of things like Google Pay, because of things like internet, phone communications, outsourcing of jobs, call centers are now going more and more deeper into India. They're not only restricted to major cities. So the alternatives have opened up that way. And I only hope that we find a correct mix of uh, the current and and still retain our ethnic flavors and our traditional Indian societal belief, which sets us apart from the rest of the world.
Exactly. But do you think that both the genders are entitled to the same social, economic, and political rights, especially in a country like India?
Oh, I definitely think so. We come from an entry where, from a country where we have been ruled by men as well as women. People tend to forget that America till date, after 250 years of independence, still hasn't had a female president, whereas India had Indira Gandhi back in 1968. In fact, India and its neighboring areas like Bangladesh had its first prime minister almost 40 years ago. Sri Lanka had their first prime minister, woman prime minister 30 years ago. Even Pakistan had uh, women prime ministers. So I don't see why we should even begin to think in this way. In fact, the West got their female heads of state very, very recently. We have had it since hundreds of years. We have had queens.
Yeah, but talking about the United States of America, you've got Kamala Harris, who's not very far away with her roots to India, isn't it?
Well, that's a I think a point of personal privilege which she enjoys, and if she chooses not to exercise it, uh, I think I and you are no one to comment on that. So let us the less said the better.
Right, right. Leave that for another day, we could say.
Yeah.
Now, if in an ideal world poverty was eradicated, especially in India, how do you think it would impact the lives of those living in urban sector?
Well, I do not think it should impact in any way. In fact, what would happen is as poverty gets eradicated, or let us say, put it in another way, that as the standard of living of the rural area increases, what is going to happen is we are going to have a collective increase in our national strength and income. And that puts us on more equal footing with other so-called developed countries. So it is going to be a win-win for us. There is not going to be any existential struggle or a difference of opinion or a sense of competition between the cities and the villages. That is never going to happen. In fact, we have people living in cities during the week and then going towards the hinterland for the weekends.
Exactly, exactly. Now, you've been living in the United States of America for well over 6 years now. There are obvious differences in the standard of living uh, in US and in India. Do you think that this gap of living standard would reduce if if urbanization took place in a planned or an efficient manner?
Oh, yes, definitely. And I think we are slowly seeing the changes coming in, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years. And while we are at it, Frankie, let me explain to you that there is a huge difference between the basic New Yorker who lives in the Big Apple and somebody like me whose house is about 50 miles out of New York. I live in a small village, and in many ways, my life is not very much different from any other rural Indian's life back in India. I still have those two, three small shops, and if I have to go to a big departmental store, or if I have to go to the city, I have to get into a train and travel to New York.
Okay, okay. That probably is one way, as you rightly said it. Now, do you think a parallel can be drawn between the family dynamics of life in the rural sector and the urban sector?
Well, the family dynamics in life, I don't think we can have the same family dynamics because of the pace of life when you compare the rural and the urban sector, the nature of employment, the level of dependence, and also the presence of the joint family system, which is still there in rural India. City doesn't have that much of joint family systems unless the culture demands it so. Like, for example, we have the Jain people tend to live in family clusters. Gujarati people tend to live in, and Parsi people tend to live in family clusters. But in rural India, it's not the culture which which sort of demarcate, or the culture which dominates. It's more or less the either the form of employment and source of livelihood, and the need for each other, the interdependence.
Okay. Um, now, leaving aside about your fourth book, going back to a senior ranking police officer back in Goa in India, you've come up a long way in publishing 4 books so far. Okay. How did the transition really happen?
Well, frankly, it actually happened out of boredom. When I first came down to the USA, I did not have a driving license. I landed in the USA in the middle of winter. And I was housebound for several months, and just out of sheer boredom, I picked up a topic uh, and started writing a book about the Mumbai terror attacks and David Headley. Uh, as luck would have it, the book was a success. I instantly got a publisher, and I never looked back since. So you could say that I am right now indulging in a very lazy profession because I don't have to go to an office. I don't have to keep hours. So I guess I'm lucky.
I'm pretty sure. Sure. And definitely uh, the fact that you already have four books, the last one being The Clear Horse, I'm sure you're really, really enjoying this part of your life, isn't it?
Oh, I'm enjoying. I actually enjoyed every part of my life. There's no part of my life I really regret. Uh, I've always been very amenable to change. I'm looking at different projects and different things to do. So, yes, right now I'm writing books, and tomorrow, who knows?
What's the next topic that we can look out from you?
Oh, well, let's wait and see. That's under a non-disclosure agreement with my publisher. So we'll have to wait and see. But I promise you, it will be great. Something
Obviously,
different.
uh, right from your first book, your second book, third book, and now this one, uh, which is you've gone back to rural India, and as you said at the start of it, that you do come from Maharashtra. Uh, I'm pretty sure there's a lot more interesting topics that you would be writing on in the years to come, isn't it?
Yes, yes, Frankie. I'm looking forward to that. Writing a book is very satisfying. It's very emotionally and aesthetically satisfying also. It gives you a lot of insight into different topics because writing a book is 80% research and knowing your topic, and 20% is just the writing part. So you learn a lot. You meet so many different people. You visit so many places. It's very enriching.
Yeah. One thing that I really needed to ask with you is, no doubt this is your fourth book. Has it been difficult to find publishers, uh, or has it been a lot of convincing that goes on with it?
Usually, aspiring authors go years before their books are accepted. Frankly, I know of several uh, persons who are acquainted with me who have written literally several, I mean, even to extent of half a dozen books without finding a publisher. And that's sometimes can be very disheartening. In my case, I was so very lucky, uh, fortunate, or maybe my book was good enough that I found a publisher within a week. So I cannot claim to have had to have been ever been a struggling author. I know those stories sound good of multiple rejections and 50, 60 rejections before you arrive upon a publisher. That has never happened to me.
I think in a way you also give publishers uh, everything that they would be more interested in, isn't it?
Perhaps my experience as a police officer in law enforcement and paramilitary, perhaps that has translated into an insight which I'm able to put into my books, and so they come across as authentic, or they meet the standard required. So yes, it could be a combination of these two things.
Now, you just mentioned about your past experience as a police officer. Anything that we should expect from you as far as the Goa Police or the Indian Police Force is concerned?
Well, Goa Police have figured in my last book about serial killers. It was called Twisted. In fact, I wrote an entire chapter about the serial killer from Goa, the the dupatta killer,
Mahanand. Mahanand.
Mahananda, Mahananda Naik. So I was devoted an entire chapter to him. So Goa Police and Goa has figured there already. In future, who knows?
Okay. Anyway, we wish you all the best, especially uh, because you started as a police officer, and I'm pretty sure you would have a whole lot of stories uh, to write about, especially with the number of years that you have spent with the Goa Police, isn't it?
Oh yes, definitely. There are many tales to be told, and who knows? Yes, looking forward to write them one day, sort of collate them. Frankie, yes.
Yeah. Uh, Now, the clay horse, if someone in India or anywhere who's watching our program would want to pick up this copy, how do they get it, Shirish?
Well, all you do is type out Clay Horses by Shirish Thorat on Amazon or on Google, and the link will come through. It's available in bookstores. It's also available online. So I guess the easier thing would be to sit at home and just uh, order it online.
All right, all right. Anyway,
Yeah.
Shirish, thank you very much for your time. I know the book has been released and it's only about, I think about 4 weeks or 5 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 3 weeks old. Yeah, it's doing well by the grace of God. Yeah, and I hope it picks up.
Was it, is it on expected lines?
Oh, it is unexpected lines. Although people seem to have got a sort of a shock, thinking that how could Shirish Thorat write a love story? Because up until now, all my books were on crime and terrorism and serial killers, and this is basically a story about a woman. It's a book about feminism. It's a book about existentialism. It's a love story. So people were surprised, but pleasantly surprised, and I was a little apprehensive about what the reaction would be, but so far every reaction has been very, very positive, and I think it will help make me into a better writer.
That's what I also noticed, that from your previous three books, this one is more on the human aspect of love. Okay, and I'm pretty sure I'd like to know uh, from you as to what really transpired.
Uh, Actually, what transpired was that there is this cliche among authors that one should not hop or change genres. If you're a thriller writer, you should keep writing thrillers. If you're a writer of horror or academia, you have to stick to your genre. And I always wondered why. And when I'm a person, if a story appeals to me and if I'm driven to write it, I will write it no matter what genre it belongs to. And it was a challenge for me to make that jump from writing about gore and crime and terrorism and blood and bullets, and then come down to rural India and write about love and affection and interdependence. And to get into the mind of a woman and think like her and write her story. But I think I came away the winner and enriched, because I found out that you can write different genres. The same man can write different genres and write good books. And I hope other authors do that too.
And you just summed it up so well, that authors should take it up as a challenge to write about different genres. Well, Shirish, I can say that what I have read a little about the Clay Horse, it's a very interesting read, and I'm pretty sure uh, people who are watching our program, not just in Goa but across the globe, would definitely get a copy of this, the Clay Horse, and enjoy it themselves. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Shirish. Thank you very much for your time. Keep up the good work, and we'd love to see some more writings from you in the years to come.
Thank you for those kind words, Frankie. And I enjoyed being on screen with you. Thank you so much.